Tonight, again, we are happy to welcome to the Athenaeum Julia Shipley and Florence Fogelin. They will kick off the first of 3 readings. Julia Shipley is a writer, an independent journalist, and author of prose, poetry, essays, book reviews, and various articles for publication, such as The 7 Days, Orion Magazine, and Yankee Magazine. She is the recipient of grants, fellowships, and awards of her work. The Academy of Hay, winner of the 2014 Melissa Lantis Gregory Poetry Prize, and Adams Mark, named a Best Book 2014 by the Boston Globe. Please visit Julia's website to find out so much more. What I learned about Julia recently was that she majored in environmental education. After traveling with the Audubon Expedition Institute throughout the Northwest, she worked on an organic farms in the Northeast that operated as CSAs, or community-supported agriculture. That has special interest to me, as I am a member of a CSA, and I believe very strongly in them. She now has her own homestead, and this life is very much reflected in her work, as illustrated by some of the titles. The Academy of Hay, Field Work, D is for dirt roads, Plot, and my very favorite, Slug Poem, which begins, I want to say how I feel about you, animated booger, kin of phlegm, ... Hopefully she'll finish the rest of that for us this evening. Florence Fogelin's Once It Stops was featured October 3rd, 2014 on Poetry Daily following fall publication in the Florida Review. Press 53 Open Awards Anthology 2013 included 3 of her poems, one of which was among 3 published on the Women's Voices for Change website. Her chapbook, Facing Light, was said by John Ingalls to be elegant work, direct, unaffected, eloquent, and passionate. Florence cares deeply about poetry, and she cares deeply about her intentions toward the poetry she writes, and is willing to share them with her audience. This is a unique opportunity to hear the poems truly with her own voice. Florence is a great friend of ours, a great friend of mine, and the Athenaeum, and we are very pleased to hear her this evening. So I give you Julia and Florence.
Here I am. Thank you, Sharon. That was lovely. I hope what I'm going to share with you will live up to that. I also want to thank Bob Jolly of the Athenaeum, and it's an honor to be here with you this evening. As you walk in on the right-hand side, there's an exhibition of some of Claire Van Vliet's exceptional work, and I think this area is so lucky to have her. Even as you come in the library tonight, there's a broadside on the right-hand side that I love her work so much, and I kind of am sort of related to her work once removed, in that the designer of this book, Adams Mark, Andrew Miller Brown, was an apprentice with Claire Van Vliet, and so her teaching of Andrew is informing this book that was put together. It was designed by Andrew, edited by Andrew, illustrated by Mary Simpson. So neat to collaborate with other artists and writers. I'm just going to read a tiny piece of prose from it, because how could I not? The premise of the book is it's about falling in love with a dairy farmer and trying to reconcile what does writing have to do with dairy farming? I mean, when those two sit down for dinner, what are they going to talk about? I mean, where do their lives intersect? I mean, What could they possibly have in common? So this section's called Bales of Prose. And the farmer's not real name is Adam, which means red clay. That's why it's Adam's mark. And Adam says, you've got to know what you can do in a day. To some extent, writing and farming are impossible to reconcile, for how is there time to cultivate the thoughts on pages and to read extensively and then to get on a tractor, plow, reseed a hayfield, fix the water line to the far pasture, and milk the cows? As an apprentice on vegetable farms, I would get up at 4:30 to write in my journal. I'd make notes on the backs of seed packets in the field. But as for making a book of work, not much accrued. I'd sneak a volume out into the field to relieve my loneliness, allowing one poem per row of weeded vegetables. And it was Galway Cannell, by the way, who kept me company. At night, I propped the book on my chest and took a few pages in before exhaustion tugged me under. Adam, he also read on the job, beginning with the Burlington Free Press. He'd drop each finished wing of the news in the gutter, one about each 5 to 7 cows. The portions he wanted to think about, he'd drape over the horizontal bars across the window, finishing the whole issue as he finished morning chores. Reading wars and natural disasters, scores and funnies, all between putting machines on, pulling machines off his herd. Hordes, Dairymen, Sports Illustrated, these were consumed in the house, along with chapters of the Bible. He had time for one a day, which he read before plunging into a post-lunch nap. When he used to plow with horses, he'd read after every furrow, turning the pages between turning the soil while the horses rested. Yasunari Kawabata coined the term smoke-long pieces and began pairing his prose to transpire entirely between the lighting of the cigarette and stubbing it out. This became part of my vocation then, to write something the length of a horse rest, or to write something so succinct and compelling that it could be left and returned to while Pepper, Cleopatra, May, and Denise let their milk down. For over a decade, Verlin Klinkenborg's twin fields of prose have itinerantly appeared in the bottomlands of the opinion page of the New York Times. Titled The Rural Life, his piece has something you could read in the time it takes to offload the tedder and attach the rake to the back of your tractor. Something you could read in the time it takes to milk out Thistle with the machine. Thistle's a cow. The layout director of the Times sticks a section of the post and rail fence around what looks to be a 65 horsepower tractor up in the headlands of these prose meadows, as if in perpetual approach. Within this tiny patch of cultivated turf, Klinkenborg explores the facets of his farm life in upstate New York. His topics are simple: a lost knife, an ice storm, a wounded horse, but he turns each observation and incident into a small, resonant meditation. His crafted words fit the mind of the reader, like a shovel fits the width of the furrow. So, I don't have the slug poem with me. I do have the leech poem. But I want to start with this one, since I'm so honored to be in this place where books and art converges. And there's a reverence for the tactile making of books. You know, they're not just sort of spit out of machines in distant places. There are people here who know about signatures and colophons. And anyway, I love finding connections between bookmaking and farming. And here's one called Ghost Story. A single trail through hock-deep snow leads to a ring of hay attended by Angus. 12 followed one's track as through a book my eyes take the path another mind broke in austere terrain, crossing this plot, print, imprint, a beast plotting to feed, and plunging her muzzle into fodder made of page and creed. So, I want to follow that up with sort of another book honoring poem. We'll find our way to it. Let's proceed with this. Twine. He wreathes a twine, secures it around her neck, and holds the tail of it in his work-fattened hand. He offers her the stub of his thumb, which she takes for a teat, stretching her muzzle, her taut legs step toward him at the moment he takes one step back. This is how they progress, the one-day-old calf on legs about to buckle, baited with an outstretched thumb, an odd waltz. He recedes at the rate of her pursuit until they've crossed the road as a couple, where his wife waits by the open gate as if she has not seen this before. Here it is, field work. Field work. He shows me where to enter the field, which direction to mow first. Then he gives me 40 days of silence, a benign quiet, apart from the tractor, a pasture where I can recall all there was aboard the wide mothership Winter. My first Quaker meeting, all of us gathered and nothing said aloud. Later, in the same field, Believe tracked out in boot prints. Whoever leapt into the letter doubled back to make another part, to make one part touch another. Both instrument and ink, their whole self written in snow. Not disappearing ink, disappearing paper. I love how in Vermont we can live in two totally different worlds and wake up every day in the same bed. There's winter and there's summer. I mean, today is June 16th. And think about what you were doing on January 16th. It's 7:15, so it's totally dark outside. And if you had scraped off the car to go to work in the morning, well, it's probably filling up with snow, so you're going to have to scrape it off in the morning. And you probably brought in more wood and stoked the stove. And you're probably like, God, can I stay up another half hour? Or am I really a wimp if I get into bed before 8? So anyway, so that poem, Fieldwork, kind of takes us out in winter. And here's this kind of same field evoked again at different times, Heartacre. The farmer squats in the dirt road beside the tractor. Using a twig, he draws a way to enter the field. For the next 2 hours, I'll drive 25 miles, mowing circles within circles. On the pond, I'd watch ripples erupt and vanish, thinking, fish postulants. Sister Bernard Mary once told me, a journey that begins to him leads to him. It's true of the ryegrass, with its 3 miles of root hairs per day, 6,603 miles per season, traveling all that way and going nowhere. We used to make fun of something called the corn joint, the lignin keeping the stalk upright, stationed despite wind. The farmer, stoic mostly, suddenly spoke. Could you stand in a field for 3 months? But our potato fork did. It remained through the winter, an effigy for where we did stand and bend and drive around with the cultivator all those months between sowing and harvesting. Yeatsian, a tattered coat upon a stick. He grows more like his scarecrow, hair amuck, grease on his pants hip where he's pinned to his tractor hang. That tilted fork stuck in February, buried to the grip, represents everything. His investment and my investment, our stubborn stab in this endeavor, our vulnerability to the elements. Well, I'll speak for me. Whatever comes or falls or fails, I'm steeled. I don't know if I can blame this on my Irish heritage or not, but I can find myself incredibly passionate, all caught up in something. And then there is this sort of blessing of later where I don't feel it as intensely. So this is elegy for anger. Up where harvested garlic hangs with mud-caked buttocks curing, where flies duel the wasps, she's crouched on an upside-down milk crate with knife, clippers, whittling the dirty wrappers off garlic, snipping the stems and root fringe, pitching each finished head in the basket. Fog blots out the ground below. A cricket grates a hymn from a heap of garlic skins, a pile so light any breeze could dishevel them. A cornfield. Behind my house is a cornfield. It has been corn for as long as I've been alive in this body. And this year, it's something different. This year, it is barley. But for the 13 years that I've lived in Craftsbury now, it has been corn. And I would look at it, and many of the poems in this book are about that cornfield. And I sort of turned this one into a love poem in a weird way. Cornfield. How I miss the cornfield, the lap of snow it held. How it was cardboard-colored mud. How they treated it like cardboard, crisscrossing, compacting, dosing it with ammonium nitrate, genetically modified seed, spritzing it with atrazine mist. How I miss the tall stalks falling in the maw of his chopper, in the shreds snowing from the backs of overloaded trucks barreling back to the bunker. How I miss the geese settling in for a caucus and the two boys skulking down with guns as long as their attention spans. Most of all, I miss the rainstorms we heard breathing in the corn leaves, heard as wind and water pelting their ragged belts, crossing from far field toward us, heard as it approached, heard as it arrived, then felt pecking at our hair and shoulders as if we were the last stalks. And then to prove myself, this is called The Lasts. And there are some echoes of that poem in this one. The fall poem. The last daylily, by the looks of it, has wept itself to sleep. Given everything, I hate to watch it go. Corn, ears, stalks, shocks, all snipped into litter. La la la, last hurrah. Season's bon vivant of its own mauling. I'm no better, dispatching 3 lambs into scraps and tossing salt, non vivant, on their petal-soft pelts. Now dog robs mound for hawk, now geese strain down to feed on the least grains of corn, spilled on the kill floor of olive autumn. This made bed needs someone, a rural savant, a fall guy, to lie. Meanwhile, the forest, by the looks of it, has amortized. Its stiff swag toe tags. And on the 3rd day, the geese, honky, itinerant, why shouldn't they, ascended, semblance of a severed tie, into elsewhere. do this one. Twine. No, I did that one. Did this one. Kokoro. I know a woman who grows herbs in the cracks of her patio so guests will crush them under loafers and swing back flats. Sprigs of hyssop, oregano, thyme fume among the rum and cokes. Herbs' generosity, this scent from contusion. It is fair, skunk reeks a mile beyond its struck body. Cells die, but odor only loses potency. Who used to whiff dried apples before settling in to write? Like an orange thumbed open, torn from its rind, citrus sticking to everything, there's an art to how we abrade beneath each other's needs, demands. If flesh absorbs touch and touch abides, her ruptured greens scuffed underfoot make spice a kind of grace. So, I always love to use readings as a chance to debut some new poems. It's kind of like focus groups, right? Or test kitchens. So I'm going to read these two and then finish up with one in here. So this is Hampson's General Slocum, and it's inspired by the beetle art, portraits across the street at the Fairbanks Museum, done by a man named Hampson, and he did a portrait in beetles of General Slocum. And so this is a tribute to Hampson, who did a tribute to General Slocum. Hampson walked 50 miles daily, sojourning in 13 states, selecting insects along the way to decorate the general, to pay tribute to the Union, using 70,000 moths and bugs, pinning each invertebrate in place. A swath of pale skipper's wings, swath of orange viceroys, for the portrait of the man astride his horse. The only non-organic portions of General Slocum were his buttons and his eyes. But they've degraded, as did those in Gettysburg, where the actual Slocum rode. A field of empty pins above desiccated thoraxes, wing litter, a confetti cemetery then, from which an archivist may reconstitute his visage, regluing iridescent green dogbane beetles and flea beetles, those ebony spots, for the dark stars and damaging cannons, for his horses' breakaway hooves. This is Barn Red. Home alone, I swirl on scarlet lipstick and forget that I did. So when the dairy farmer knocks, apropos of nothing, and then stares longer than usual, I suddenly remember and blush half as dark. When to my surprise he asks, "May I see?" I hand him the cylinder, which he uncaps, leaning against the sink into the mirror, applying it thickly to his freshly shaved face. So now we both evince the look of those who've recently gorged on a Burgundy feast. Years hence, I still don't know what to conclude. He never said much that meant anything I could discern. So I spent my energy in conjecture, and that's how we soared and stalled and plummeted through those months under the engines of my intermittent imagination. So forgive me if I invoke more uncertainty when I admit I think of his gesture as religious, like the grand compassion of the priest who sups with the monk who has failed at fasting. Did he see me in my pain of being seen and attempt to relieve me by visiting it upon himself? Or perhaps this confirmed we sure were accidental vampires who couldn't bear inflicting our afflictions on any new victims, so we fed off our mutual wounds. Nah, That's too sophisticated and all. Perhaps he was just showing me everything he couldn't declare throughout our faulty affair, that he'd always been and was now ready to be visibly fabulous. So, and then this one is for my husband. This is the life of pie, the kind you eat, P-I-E. I thawed strawberries, valentines plucked under June's overcast sky, and added October's windfall apples, added butter coaxed from a dawn milking I no longer remember, added flour from grains raised 2 time zones away, added syrup, that secret elixir, chemistry of the 100-day leaf, intercourse of terrains, mingling of days, minerals, rains, heat, surfeit, our homecoming, home came, my pie on your plate, our sticky first date. This lucky confluence and flux became the radius of us. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to listen to Florence Fogelin now, and so are you.
Julia and I read together at another lovely library, but not like this. It was in Woodstock. And I swear, either your poetry is getting better or your reading is better, but it's better and better. Let's see. First of all, Bob and Shara are friends to me and friends to you and friends to this wonderful place. I told somebody I was reading here and they said, oh yeah, it looks like a Hollywood set for a poetry reading. Yeah, it does. I'll start with some happy and seasonal ones and then get a little more, poetic. Is that the word? I'll start with one that was here in St. J when we had Poem Town. I'd like to thank Ann Campbell. Is she here? I don't, Anyway, we became pen pals on the email, and she was organizing the display of poems all over town. Mine was at the Natural Provisions, not in the window, but on the bulletin board. So I'll start with that one. Summer night music. The Ling-Ling man brightened the suburbs about the time the streetlights lit, offering the best of life's desserts, a thin, tasteless shell of chocolate-colored wax that cracked under a tentative bite into bits your tongue chased down the melting ooze of ice cream. Will he come tonight? How you suffered bedtime before dark. Will he come before I have to go to bed? And if I'm asleep, can I get up again? You heard him, blocks away, his amplified bicycle bell calling you to dance for coins. Your eyes were musical. And this one I've read here before, but it's so absolutely appropriate for today that I'll read it again. The Best of Company. The power and the glory of a June morning is pushing 80 on I-91, listening to Glenn Gould play Bach's Fifth Partita much too fast, both of us, each note as articulate as a leaf in summer's green, hilarious profusion. The deity's extravagant, not at all put off by speed. Zooming into Vermont, I'm in the best of company, an apprentice learning from the masters to focus on detail. Leaves unfurl, I phrase them into trees, dial up the volume and weave through traffic's pop tunes, rock and melodies. Make way for the Baroque. Glory be to God who does things to excess. Our eyes are programmed 3 times over to see the color green, to see what he's doing. Celebrate abundance, abundantly precise. Step on the gas and race the sun toward light's longest day, which is coming up, what, in 5 days? Yeah. Another one, it doesn't sound like it's about Vermont, but it is, because it's got peonies. Aren't they wonderful this year? Anyway, life is lovely in Vermont right now. La Dolce Vita in Soho. Champagne and sushi served to celebrate the opening. Italian lamps and tables, kitchen faucets, shower heads, all designs worthy of the Museum of Modern Art. While Prada-clad models and multilingual businessmen murmured their admiration of one another's posture, I tried to imagine them living here, brushing their teeth, spilling milk, luxuriating in a travertine tub worth thousands. Among the polished smiles and surfaces of chrome and stone, a handful of peonies hung over and disheveled, relaxed their blush-pink blousy heads over the sharp edge of a square glass bowl. This one's pretty light. Sidley liked it, so I'll read it. But it's X-rated. Al Museo della Storia di Scienza. You knew I was going to have something about Italy, didn't you? It's the Museum of History of Science. Al Museo della Storia di Scienza. It's right around the corner from the Uffizi. And when you want to get away from people, it's almost deserted, and it's really neat. Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. Since Galileo hadn't given names, hadn't pondered naming, he thought first of trick glass, funny parlor games, a Dutchman's toy, the kind of thing that's good for finding ears on Saturn, or the pox that maims the surface of the moon. Perhaps it could elaborate God's sky, enrich his claims wherever the eye of man empowered aims. But more, far more, a disobedient sky drawn by moons of Jupiter. What do these circles circle? Godlessness? The eye must shine that sees the universe anew. Among his notes and telescopes, I try to find the mind of a man who could eschew the beauty of it publicly, then vivify his still earth moves. Why care, he knew. For such as he, what reliquy will do? Idols offend, synecdoche annoys. I know a man whose sperm is worth the fight, he says, to freeze 200 years, rejoicing in his DNA. Bones incite the faithful, the brain in a vat, Bentham, no voice, but on boxed display. And here, an uncontrite follower made a cheerful graveside choice. His upthrust middle finger, preserved, airtight. A gesture outlasts a pope. You see, I was right. Just when you see something, say something. Well, I saw it and I said it. Contact sheet. Is this annoying you, or shall I use it or not? Okay, I'll use it. I'll try. Contact sheet. You remember in the good old days when photographs were taken on film, and we had contact sheets that had those little pictures of, all things. Anyway, contact sheet. 1, the blind man bares his teeth. Someone told him it would do the trick. Put a quarter in his cup. Watch him try to grin. 2, the little girl, the pretty one, stops her tears, disappointed of desired effect. She frames her mouth to look like lipstick. 3, lips as grave and tired as her Picasso face resting on her elbow. The woman on the F train holds the baby close and eats him with her eyes. 4, they're old, not much to say while they chew carefully the early bird special. Negotiating coats and doors, they leave behind their hands, semaphores of caring. 5. Shoulder to wrist to hand, her expression floats and hovers near her fingertips. I wish I could dance. I wonder what I look like when I look at her. 6. She takes the mind-body problem seriously. I'm working on it my way, trying to smile, trusting it to speak for me. Oh, yeah. All men are mortal is sort of arranged on the page in a triangle. I don't usually play around with this stuff, but it's about the Vietnam War Memorial, and it seems to be right. All men are mortal. 3 dots. The sign of therefore, of the cold logic of why and what we remember, what brought us here. Another war memorial, another slant on death, the dead piled into another pyramid, their names pressed with salted fingers into granite. They were men. All men are mortal. Did you think they'd live forever? Between the why and therefore falls the shadow. South and north of here, on southern courthouse lawns and Yankee greens, black cannonballs kiss as much as need demands. 1 on 3, 3 on 6, 6 on 10, and so on. Death on death, as deliberate as war's careful explanation, reasons, premises, conclusion. Washington's smooth face expresses a way to remember, a why to forget. Lighten up. This one is, again, a local setting, you'll see. You may notice that I have a lot of philosophical references in my poems because I married one, and they just keep cropping up in my thoughts. If the eye were an animal, my father's eyes were pale, unclouded, his pupils irised out by glaucoma medication. He had the vacant look of the blind, yet sight struggled through the aperture as if for breath. I wondered if he saw me upside down, as in a camera obscura, or through a cyan gel. On misty days, I think of him, how patiently he took the loss. Once in a glider, I played tag with a hawk. Riding a thermal, we claimed a double helix, but soaring didn't make me see any better. And if the clouds lift, even on Mount Washington, what of it? If the eye were an animal, Aristotle said, sight would be its soul. But I don't know how far I want my soul to travel. Let's see. Where am I going? Oh, good. A love poem. The Boathouse, a love poem. Once we walked on water. Oh, by the way, the boathouse, we have a summer place over in Littleton at Partridge Lake. It's just on the other side of the river. And we've been there for 49 years. And I guess the first summer we discovered this place and got blown away by what nobody had ever told us about. Okay, The Boathouse, a love poem. Once we walked on water, on winter ice thick enough to support a demolition job. The boathouse had to go, a matter more of disuse than of wood rot. It was a kind of shared therapy, tearing it apart with our gloved hands, sledgehammers, crowbars, rough tools, attacking a task with leverage allowed only by winter's floor. Removing stubborn, rusty nails, we heard the children's summery squeals. No swallows were around to swing by and complain. We peeled down to our undershirts, sweating an out-of-season sweat that defied the icy slush beneath our feet, boots skittering in awkward navigation. We made a fire in snowdrifts burying the beach. Roasted nails remained as evidence until we mopped them up with magnets. Like love-crazed fireflies, sparks rose to celebrate the cold coming of the night, while the exposed frame leaned with the loss of its clabbered skin, one way, then another. For as long as we could, we kept it aright, swaying and holding on to itself like a pair of weary marathon dancers. Yeah. This one is called Forget and Forgive. And I want to make it very clear that it is not forgive and forget. In fact, I discussed some of these matters with my Hume scholar in residence, and one of the joys of Hume is that he appreciates the vivacity of our daily life, which blows away some of our deepest worries and concerns. Once you get out into the world, things really seem better. But enough of that. Forget and forgive. An anonymous note with return address, and over the transom, remember me, reminds me that the best revenge lets nature let go. Sentence diagrams without their words, skeletons like November's trees whose fallen leaves are blank even when I turn them over. Leave it alone, my mother said. The scab is there for a reason. In storage, library card catalogs, little empty drawers, still have metal rods tying down their lack of information. Books I've lost, given away. Still I have too many. It feels good to go to the dump. I don't regret what's there. Memories, my friend, with soft aging hands. Names are first to go, as if the book's index has gone missing. Then the plot. Let's see. Mount Jefferson is, I was talking to somebody who had just climbed Mount Washington, and I said, it's wonderful, but Mount Jefferson is better. Finale. The conductor pushes the tempo, hurrying things along. Violinists pitched forward, leaning on their bows. The wind section tense, waiting for the nod. Shining cymbals raised for the climax. Well, it's not like that. It's not a crescendo. It's more like the day we didn't climb Mount Jefferson, our favorite, the summit now too daunting. We reached tree line and settled for a picnic on a sunny outcropping, while a white-throated sparrow sang in the boreal scrub, Mozart's second movement bird, music in a minor key like crystals growing on a string. He concentrated stillness with plaintive clarity appropriate to our suspended place and time, a solo, old Sam Peabody, Peabody, Peabody. We felt the space he left behind, but didn't see him fly. Yeah. Pathetic fallacy. I don't know. I learned about it in, it's that as beautiful as it is today, it's our reaction to the day, not the day reacting to us. Pathetic fallacy. I never believed it anyway, the notion that the heavens weep when we do, that the sun shines on happiness. The bluest ever day in September was 9/11. Fall has splashed its energy along the highway leading to the rehab center, but rain and drizzle have disappointed this year's leaf-peeping tourist. Unlike me, they take it personally. My grip on the steering wheel is tense, tighter than his on the walker he's learning to guide. I bring him a shaggy mane from the lawn, a gift from our world, damp, still without frost. Reds and golds have printed dark photograms on wet roads and sidewalks. The oak leaves refuse to let the weather get them down. In diminished light and pouring rain, we drive home through shades of brown, glowing from within, rich mahogany to burnished, papery tan. I'll read the last poem in the book, and then I read one from my chapbook, just as a crazy way of ending. Out of season. 3 small red bouquets, half-pint baskets of strawberries placed to tempt me on a snowy night at the counter of Dan and Witt's general store, are doing their best to make me think of June. It's not their price that puts me off. Something's wrong. Berries out of season. Is it their stinginess? My future father-in-law liked my greed, my never mind the dirt barefoot in his berry patch. It's not that I do not admire a single rose, perfection in a stem, but all in all, I much prefer a bunch. Spring is not a gesture, which is just to say, I will not eat the berry that's been counted sooner than I'd live life one day at a time. The last one, we all know about Joyce Kilmer and the tree. This is a tree talking, and if you recognize. Well, actually, we've all seen these beautiful trees that grow right out of a rock, and especially if it's like Monterey Peninsula in California or Maine, or I was looking out the window in Italy, and there's this umbrella pine just hanging over the sea, growing right out of the cliff, and it's like, wow. So, here's the tree. A voice from the edge of the sea. Well, if that's what it takes to be a tree, I'll try it. Go that way. It looks like certain death, but death is, after all, what one makes of it. I'll cantilever from the rock, lean to the left, capture the morning light and what's left late in the day. I'll rope myself to shore and laminate my roots to the stone. There's nourishment in stone. I'll find a way, and I'll be famous. The more I dare, the more I'll be photographed. I'll laugh at anyone who tries to pry me off this cliff. The wind thinks whiplash is the trick, and all that frantic foam, its self-deluding, self-destructive rage, wave after wave, mortifying its wavy flesh. I'll be here at home until I won't, the same as you. Till then, don't think that I don't understand gravity and drought, or cause and effect. When you snap my picture, take it home and hang it on the wall. You'll see the spitting image of yourself, not nature's lucky residue. Your gnarled limbs, arthritic hands, the proud portrait of your courage, your scars, your flaws. Thanks so much. And thanks to Julie.